Hey guys, Ron here, and I've been making Fakemon on this channel for more than 4 years now. That's totally enough time for me to learn and grow in my ability to design Pokemon. And along the way, I began to grow attached to at least like 20, so why not finally count down my favorites? By understanding the Fakemon I think are successful, I can continue to implement the design aspects I find the most appealing. Keep in mind that the entire video is basically me bragging, but like, what else am I gonna do? I kinda have to talk fondly of what I think are good designs. If you've been keeping up on my art series, then you'll definitely have completely different favorites than mine. So if there's a Fakemon you think should have been here, let me know and why. It's not like these are the objectively best Fakemon I've made, simply the ones I'm most attached to. So let's begin with number 20. Shinobris. In 4 artists designed Pokemon from the same description, my fellow guest and I had to make 2 Pokemon that had some sort of relationship, so I decided to make an Autumn Ninja who's rivals with a Winter Samurai. Shinobris ended up displaying some of my favorite colors and design schemes on a Pokemon I've made. His personality is exactly the type I like on a Pokemon. He'd make a great protagonist. Ever since I started making Fakemon, I've tried to successfully nail a design that has a silhouette of a leaf, and this one is the most successful. And the icing on the cake is how its name comes from Shinobi and Breeze, but easily works in Japanese, since it would be pronounced Shinoburisu, which literally means endurance squirrel. Number 19. Possessed. I'm just very proud of myself for creating the concept of a ghost flea larva that floats around. It's translucent so you can see the blood inside of it, but even though it's very possessive, it's still kinda cute. At the time, I kinda thought that this Pokemon could be some kind of mascot Pokemon. You know how when every new generation comes out, that there are Pokemon other than the starters that are showcased, like Wooloo and Rockruff? So I originally thought of Possessed as that for my Sun region. A Pokemon that could get attached to Ash in the anime and be very comedic. But there are Pokemon later in the list that would work even better. Like, number 18. Twug. Once I made this Twig bug, I think the role of Possessed shifted to Twug. It became the most popular cute Pokemon of my own region. It has so much character. This crybaby could easily have an entire arc in the anime where it eventually becomes a confident yet emotional Phasmask. As an entire line, the Phasmask family is one of my favorites. The progression of a Twig bug becoming a hero and going from thin to muscular is such a hilarious juxtaposition on the concept of a stick bug. Number 17. Fantwist. Almost a year ago, I tried starting a series where I talked about the design history of various Pokemon types and created Pokemon based on precedent. Only the first episode was released, but underperformed, so it didn't continue. But since I was trying my best to make believable Pokemon in that video, I created one of my favorite grass types around, this Tumbleweed Cowboy Ghost Pokemon. It was insanely tough designing a Pokemon with so many twists, but once I realized its branches could form the silhouette of a hat, I knew I was onto something special. My fondness for this design unfortunately made the real Tumbleweed Pokemon very underwhelming in my eyes. Number 16. Putridome. A few years ago, I made a Pokemon called Putridome that consumes oil spills and expels fresh water. I used it to trick Natani in my Real or Fake Pokemon Challenge video. Then when it came time to redesign it, I used the design for the Prevo and evolved it into a Plesiosaur with oil slick patterns and stripes that look like plastic as well as a skull. And I thought it was a great way to represent ocean pollution, and until this day, Putridome 2.0 has one of my favorite color schemes I've ever given a Pokemon. The contrast is powerful, it's both intimidating and friendly looking. Number 15. Darkrai. In my first creating legendary Pokemon pre-evolutions video, the very first idea I had was golden, and it turned out splendidly. The idea to make Darkrai's Prevo into this little sleepy boy with a nightcap and pajamas was executed in such a satisfying way. I couldn't be more proud of this idea, let alone the final design. It's one of the most realistic Fakemon I've ever made. It almost looks like what a Darkrai Prevo was always intended to look like, and the name is just the icing on the cake. Number 14. Burret. Making an evolved form for such a memed Pokemon is intimidating. I never knew I'd be able to do it. Not only did I find a new concept for a regional Furret as an ice type with winter coats, but expanded upon its legendary length in a simple yet effective way. It's possibly cuter than Furret, at least in my eyes, yet it clearly looks like a final evolution with power and grace. It would be one of my favorite ice types if it were real. Number 13. Marmosend. In the same video I made Fantwist, I also redesigned another Pokemon I showed my friend Natani, named Marmosend. Just like Putridome, I gave its original design to its Prevo and created a new concept for Marmosend, a grass monkey with a shrub mane that carries its young inside of its mane. I love the idea that Marmini basically fuses with Marmosend's bush and wraps its tail around Marmosend's waist. I was trying my best to give this Pokemon proportions I thought Game Freak would give it, since the whole point of the video was to demonstrate how to design a Pokemon. I think I succeeded. It's such a wholesome design. Number 12. The Starter Final Evolutions. In reality, I think each of these has a different degree of success. Persifant is my personal favorite as something I'd put on my team. I've always wanted a grass elephant, but it's a bit over-designed. I'd definitely take out a few elements if I were to redesign it. Incinerate is the design whose personality I like the most. I wouldn't change much, but I would definitely redo its pose and final art. It's the most jank of the three in my opinion. But Bellamar, despite not having the best fan reception, considering I turned a cute dolphin into an intimidating monster, is a design that I think was the most successful. I'd change nothing really. The psychedelic patterns that also look like scars are fantastic. I love how I depicted it using its powers too. It's the most complete of the three, but as a trio, I'm very proud. Number 11. Thundorix. Some of my favorite Pokemon are intimidating yet sleek electric types, especially the final evolutions like Luxray and Zebstrika, so it was a pleasure to finally design my own quadrupedal electric type beast, and I'm definitely satisfied. This would totally be a Pokemon I would train. The electric coils as horns and the particular Oryx patterns I gave this Pokemon all worked out perfectly. I love Pokemon that combine animals and elements seamlessly. Number 10. Shemarera. The Hidden Technique Pokemon was part of the Divine Trio that I made for the Ason story. This Pokemon's real-life origins in Jewish mythology and how I combined them into a powerful-looking yet angelic creature was a turning point in my confidence as a Fakemon artist. Legendaries are the most intimidating to design, but as I was drawing this Fakemon, some ideas simply kicked in, and I ended up with a relatively popular creation of mine. I have a huge soft spot for Azarera, Shemarera's counterpart, since I designed him first, but Shemarera's color scheme is incredibly appealing to me. Number 9. Barbariana. The evolution of a Sonian Mightyena. It looks so natural. While I loved Obstagoon, many fans' frustrations with its proportions and build prompted me to make a more feral looking regional evolution for a Hoennian Mon. Its patterns and color scheme and genuinely authentic Mightyena face makes it look semi-real to me. This feels like a Pokemon Game Freak could have made. Plus, where hyenas are badass. The energy this Pokemon exudes is palpable. Number 8. Makog. The brother of Babag. A duo based on Gog and Magog, mythological civilizations and giants that could potentially bring an end to days, at least in the Bible. These sub-legendaries went on a rampage in ancient Ason. When I was first designing Makog, I had no idea what it was even going to be. I just knew I wanted it to be a giant. Finally coming to the realization that they should be based on Vikings and macaques kinda ended up being perfect inspirations for an ice giant Pokemon. It looks incredibly powerful yet somewhat intelligent and even pretty. I love its colors. Perfect for an ice steel type. A good mix of fluffy fur and hard materials is exactly the kind of contrast a good Pokemon design can have. Number 7. Grassassin. The idea to combine a Hashashin or assassin with a grasshopper was so exciting. The dagger claws and mandibles that look like facial hair were fine touches that perfectly combined a bug with a man. It's probably a bit too humanoid for a bug Pokemon, but I just love it as a concept in general, and the dark camouflage color scheme just seems so authentic. I just can't help but be immersed in this Pokemon's execution. It's such a character. Phasmaska, Twig's final evolution, and this Pokemon's nemesis is an honorable mention. I love how both lines are intertwined. The Grassassin line bullies Twug, making it go on a hero's journey. Number 6. Spryon. When I tasked myself with making an Atom Pokemon, I didn't just want to make a traditional Atom with eyes. Turning it into like a little kid with ball hands that ricochet around it like electrons was what kept me going during the design process. That and the absolute adorable face I ended up giving it. Spryon's eyes are like infinite pools of blue, and its optimistic smile and blush gets me through the day. This dude looks like the protagonist for an indie platformer video game. Honestly, maybe in the future I'll try to turn Spryon into a full-fledged video game character. Number 5. Brawleon. Fighting type evolution was always one of the toughest to design. I mean, considering it's an example of a type with mostly bipedal Pokemon, the fact that fighting is not an element or special power like all the other evolutions made it even tougher. And many Fakemon artists' decision to add inanimate objects to their fighting type evolution made me very hesitant to design one. I knew I had to keep it minimal, and while it wasn't received as well as I hoped, the personality of a battle shonen protagonist that I imbued into this Pokemon makes it feel like the perfect Pokemon to have at my side. It's one of my favorite creations, clearly. Number 4. Okaperil. It's simply one of my favorite concepts I love the unique execution of it. The idea for a simple Okapi to evolve into a rampaging monster whose own body restrains it was haunting. The idea that when it evolves, the stripes exude out and become an exoskeleton with a mind of its own and actually prevents it from doing harm is something I've never seen done before. I love black and white Pokemon. They're so striking. It's such an intimidating color scheme. So having a dark type be a majority white is compelling. Number 3. Tindril. The cutest Pokemon I've ever designed. Many years ago, this was another Pokemon I made for the Real or Fake Pokemon series. I ended up revisiting it and making it perfect in my eyes. It's a Pokemon I fake myself out into thinking it's real. Like, in my mind, it's already an amalgamation of all the cute grass-type Pokemon like Smoliv, that it just feels real. I want to hold it. It's my child. I love you, Tindril. Number 2. Laura's Surge. It seems that a lot of the animalistic Pokemon I make are quadrupedal, so I finally took the time to make a cool fire electric type that I thought anybody would want on their team. The idea of taking a traditionally sluggish animal like a slow Loris and giving it tiger attributes to make it look fierce and fast was fun to execute. And the most successful aspect, in my opinion, is how it looks like both a fire and electric type. Its signature move, Burning Thunder, is so apt. It's one of the most fully fleshed out Pokemon I've ever made. It was made to be the ace on anybody's team. Most importantly, it was the beginning of the renaissance in my Fakemon art. Before Laura Surge, most of my Pokemon were in static poses, but nowadays I at least try to make some of my Pokemon look as dynamic and in action as Laura Surge's art. Now let's take a look at some honorable mentions before I reveal my favorite Pokemon I've ever made. Cobalion looks like a real Prevo to Cobalion to me. It's so friendly and brave looking. I think most of us would train a Cobalion if it were part of a family. Comedium is one of my favorite designs, but considering it's literally based on Sans, I can't take too much credit. But I was completely surprised how natural it looked as both a Fakemon and an homage to Sans. Same with my other video game inspired Pokemon like Cephalaunch. A cephalopod based on Samus was so fun to make. Probably the most involved design I made for the series. Its colors work so well too. It's actually in my top 10, but I decided to keep it here since, again, it's clearly Samus. In my second creating randomly generated Pokemon video, I had to make a dragon-type frog Pokemon, and it ended up looking way more intuitive than I originally imagined. I love everything about it. It just has no real concept since its idea was randomly generated, so it wasn't in my top 20. Luminsect, though, is one of my favorite concepts ever. The idea of a Christmas light firefly is one of my favorites. It's relatively old, so I can't say it holds up to my current standards, but I'm still super fond of it. On the other hand, one of the most recent designs I've made was Dreamar, a legendary evolution of Hypno. It's exactly what I want Hypno to turn into. I was able to finally capture its potential. And Zapaparu, a Zacian and Zamazenta Prevo, has such a cute yet valiant appearance, with a super clever name. Check out my second Creating Legendary Pre-Evolutions video to understand why it's such a genius name. But my number one favorite Pokemon has to be Viralurk, the pseudo-legendary Pokemon of the Asoan region. Legendaries are intimidating to design, sure, but you can easily justify them looking weird. But pseudo-legendaries like Metagross and Dragapult have to look incredibly cool. And when I was designing Viralurk, for like 90% of the process, it was not living up to my lofty expectations. It's based on chemical warfare. Its entire line is based on Western armies, and its face is gas mask adjacent, and its chest hints at a bomb diffuser suit. This Gila monster inspiration had to come through as well. In the end, once I incorporated the gas-filled neck, it all clicked. The final idea was to make its skin translucent, so you can see how its body is completely filled with toxic gas, and that was the icing on the cake. In concept and execution, this is my favorite. Many people agreed too. Literally the most impressive fan art I've ever gotten was a fully modeled and animated Viralurk. It looks so real, I can't help but forever cherish this design. And I hope you cherish this video as well. Leave a like if you did, and subscribe for more Pokemon art videos. Go to the description for the music I used, the t-shirts I made for you guys, and my Patreon, where you can get cool rewards like seeing my videos days early, which you can also do by pressing the join button. Follow me on Twitter, where I post previews and full art of my Fakemon too. Bye!